And look at that. I've been on mute saying a whole bunch of stuff to myself. But again, welcome everyone for being here tonight. We are thrilled that you are here to wrap up our last week of our mental health conversations with the Haitian American Medical Association, HAMA. As you guys may know, my name is Brenda Lormill. I am the founder and the executive director of the Haitian American Medical Association. I have the absolute honor of leading this team in finding culturally sensitive ways to educate our Haitian American community in order to improve their health literacy and build better healthcare outcomes. And part of that effort, this project that we're doing now live, has been in person for the past 2 years, but because of the pandemic that we're living through, we decided to make it virtual and increase our reach of our Haitian communities wherever they are. And we are excited about that. We thank the National Networks of Library of Medicine for funding this project for the past 3 years. It has been great. A little bit about me. I am the equity nurse practitioner at Massachusetts General Hospital. I work in the Tamir Center for clinical research. I enjoy my team here. When I'm not doing this, I'm teaching for Regis College, or I'm with my family, friends, reading, or practicing self-care, okay? The best that I can. So I don't want to hold up any of what has to be done tonight. I am looking forward to a great conversation with some stellar men in our community and our amazing moderator, Christina. Again, for another week, the fourth week, I am going to allow Christina to join me on the screen and do an amazing introduction of who she is. I will say yes. Christina joined us last year and she's been part of our fundraising committee. I'm going to stop there and you tell everybody else about yourself. Christina, thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. And thank you to all who are watching, again, both on Facebook and YouTube. Just to reiterate what Brenda has said, my name is Christina Michelle. I've been on the fundraising committee at HAMA for a little over a year now. But when I'm not doing that, I am working on developing lipid nanoparticles at Moderna Therapeutics. Tonight is our fourth and final week of this series. It's very, very bittersweet. We have talked about anything ranging from depression to stress. And today we are going to learn about putting ourselves first. I am happy and ecstatic to see and hear what our panelists have to say. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our other two panelists, because Brenda is the third. I'm going to introduce Giscard and Royale. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
Good. So if you could each just give a short but sweet introduction on a little bit about yourself, what you do on a day-to-day basis. And throw in a fun fact too, if you wish.
Just God, you want to go first or want me to go first?
I mean, you initiated it, so I'll give you the honors, Royale.
Okay, so my name is Royal L. Rodden. I'm a transformational speaker and the founder of the Community Center RTI Empowerment Center, which is located in Stoughton, Massachusetts. And on a daily basis, my mission is to help other people get one step closer to their best selves. In brief.
Nice.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Giscard Santil. I'm a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Massachusetts. I've worked in the field for almost 11 years now. Children's, adolescents, families, both in-home, residential, and outpatient. I'm fluent in Haitian Creole, which is an honor to be here amongst my people. And I've worked with numerous Haitian families, both individually and as a whole. So I'm passionate about the work I do, especially being a Haitian male and being fluent in the language has been a blessing for many families I serve. So I'm continuing to discover more about the work I contribute and also looking to opening a private practice to better serve our community. So I'm honored to be here and ready to learn more.
Awesome. Thank you all. Thank you. So we're just going to get right into it. My first question is, and I'm going to do a little deviation because I would love to know, and I'm sure our viewers would love to know too. So for each and every one of you, how did you get into your line of work? What inspired you to get into your line of work?
So I'll go. At a very early age, I made a decision that I was going to help my mother escape poverty. I'm also Haitian American, and I came from very humble beginnings. And I always witnessed my mother having good difficulty keeping the lights on. Whether it's that or it's an eviction notice on the door, or whether she's complaining on the phone or crying. And as a child, I made a lot of poor decisions. I was, getting in a lot of trouble in school, but I always felt that one day I was going to help my mother escape poverty. So I tried everything in my power that I believe would help her escape poverty. But the choices that I made, it eventually landed me in prison for close to 4 years. And, during my incarceration, I used to see other inmates going to their parents' wakes and funerals in cuffs and shackles. And I used to say, God, if you help me get out of this space, if you help me find my life purpose, I'll never come back. Just keep my mother alive long enough for me to come home, because if she was to pass with me inside of this space, I don't think I would ever recover. And, I prayed about it. And then one day I was reading a book by the name of Success Principles. And the author, Jack Canfield, who's also the author for Chicken Soup for the Soul. And Jack Canfield, had some exercises in the book that help you identify what your life purpose was. And in doing those exercises, I realized that my life purpose is to help people get one step closer to their best selves. But the first thing I had to do was help myself get one step closer to my best self, right? So then I created the RTI, which is the name of my community center, Revolution to Inspire. So the first revolution I did was on myself. And if you know the definition of a revolution, it means to change or die. So I made a decision to change myself. And in that, I decided that my life mission would be helping other people change themselves. And this is how I got on this track.
Thank you for your transparency, vulnerability.
Yeah, definitely.
Every time we connect, Royale. For me, it was honestly just a lack of representation growing up, whether it be in school or hospital settings. When you hear the word counselor or social worker, it was typically, I would see a young white female. And occasionally I'd see, one of our Black women also in the field, but there was rarely Black men. If anything, I mostly saw Black men in school as more disciplinary than more therapeutic based. So I was like, what is going on with this dynamic? And just, going to Haiti often as a child, my mom, which I'm grateful for, would take us to Haiti since we were maybe 4 or 5. So going there every summer for the past almost 15 years, I'd get to connect with my roots on a deeper level and have dialogue with the neighborhood children I grew up with on situations they were going through. I didn't realize at the time, but I was doing counseling without being licensed with the kids, and they grew to admire me even more. And I just started to feel more connected with them and felt I had a more of a purpose to give back to my community in a way that teaching doesn't do so much. I really want to explore why people do what they do. I know a lot of therapists say that, but in a line of my work and being Haitian, it's not common to see a Haitian therapist, male or female. So I really just wanted to change that narrative and explore that further. And just in my neighborhood, I've shared it in other presentations where I grew up with certain individuals who'd always get into trouble for the same things over and over. And I'm like, why isn't it clicking for them that what you're doing will lead to success? And, I was questioning, but I didn't know how to explore or get the answers. It's not till I became much older and reconnected with some of these childhood friends, they shared with me that, just guard, here's the situation. I was diagnosed with depression, or I'm a schizophrenic, or I'm bipolar. And I'm like, wow. So back then, I didn't know how to label what they were doing, but I knew something was off. And the services they were getting, whether it was in school or juvie, wasn't enough. So seeing those things, I'm like, I have to do something. And when I learned what psychology was, I'm like, I think this is God's calling for me to grow and just give back, especially overseas whenever I do travel back.
Thank you both for sharing. And like Justcard said, thank you, Royale, for your vulnerability. Absolutely. I honestly, my answer is actually twofold, because my work as a healthcare provider is what actually, that's when I felt the charge to create HAMA for my community. So becoming a nurse practitioner, or at least a nurse, I will say, I took a couple of detours. I remember after in high school, I was supposed to go into health sciences, and I told my guidance counselor, no, I don't want to work too hard. And I went into retail banking, and then I had this crazy idea that I was going to be an international businesswoman, and it was an epic failure my first year of college. And I ended up transferring to Regis College, became a nurse, went back, became a nurse practitioner, but it was my first year of being a nurse practitioner that that aha moment went off. I said, I got a master's degree and I'm doing this, but there has to be more to life than this. Like, there has to be. And we'll talk about self-care and journaling, but I journaled a lot back then. And I remember in 2008, I wrote this vision that I had about creating this organization for my Haitian community that would better their health. And it was just a vision, and there was all of these names. And it was one frustrating day going home as I worked as a nurse practitioner in 2016 when I first started, and I started reading back on some of my journal writings. And I said, there must be something with this. And I remember sitting down with a consultant, and I asked her, I was like, what can I do with this? And this is what happened with that. HAMA came out of that moment in time. It was about 8 years prior. HAMA was birthed out of something that I wrote down 8 years prior. And I wouldn't have it any other way. People say, how do you do all of that? Well, when you're in your purpose, it doesn't feel like all of that, right? You got to know when to slow down, but it fuels you in a different way, and you feel like you're really making a change in your community. So I wouldn't be able to do HAMA if I wasn't doing the work that I do now. And a lot of, my conversations with other healthcare providers about how fragmented the system is, and how our community, like our healthcare in the community, our folks, our immigrant folks, whether you're Haitian or from another country, it's not clicking for them. And I want it to click for my Haitian people. And going back to Haiti and seeing what our parents actually came from, and having the thought that, my God, they're coming from that to try to understand this. We need to help them, and that's HAMA in its entirety. So,
thank you all for your anecdotes. Oh, were you gonna say something? Sorry. Thank you all for your anecdotes. I know journaling was mentioned. I know become your best self was mentioned. I know working with the youth was also mentioned. With all of that, how would you define happiness? How is happiness achieved? Are you genuinely happy with what you do on a day-to-day basis? And how does that coincide with self-care?
I could go.
Anyone?
Yes, it's a great question. Happiness is tied into self-care in many ways. There's a quote by Les Brown, who God willing when I get to shake his hand, because I think he truly got me through grad school with his YouTube videos. But he said a quote that I had taped up on my closet. It said, if you're not willing to risk, you cannot grow. If you cannot grow, you cannot become your best. If you cannot become your best, you cannot be happy. And if you can't be happy, then what else is there? I carry that whether it was an in-home session or if I'm at a residential treatment center and I'm doing work in a family room, or even now via telehealth. It does bring me a sense of happiness and purpose, to Rael's point, when I see something click in a parent's head, especially when they're families of color, with regards to how they discipline their children or how they speak to them. When I get a parent to be like, oh, okay, I get it. I'm like, okay, God, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Now, not every session is like that, but I've been fortunate enough to not only have the clinical training, but also I believe God humbled me enough to remind me that it's not about me. You know, if I'm ever disrespected by a client, or they say mean things to me, I have learned to say it's not about me, it's about what they're processing in that moment. So it does bring me a sense of satisfaction and reminds me that I'm here for a reason to help navigate for those who didn't have a voice before I came along or were, in a sense, muted by the system.
Thank you. I remember, I took myself down one day, and then I was looking back at all the times I wasn't happy, right? Like a timeline. I was studying. I'm like, I wasn't happy at this point in my life. I wasn't happy at this point in my life, and I came up with a definition for happiness, and I believe that happiness is actually keeping the commitments that we make with ourselves.
Wow.
And that when we don't keep the commitments that we make with ourselves, we aren't happy. And if we aren't happy, then we stop caring for ourselves. And that's when the self-care begins to go down the drain. So happiness is really, keeping the commitments we make with ourselves. And once we keep those commitments, everything is just blooming in front of us.
And if I may add also to that, we'll talk about the goal of self-care, what it means. For me, it's an intention to evolve. If you're not evolving mentally, emotionally, physically, or spiritually, then how can one truly be happy? So for me personally, my definition is what I'm doing right now helping me elevate in any form. And if it's not, then how can I truly be happy? So it's intention to grow more than your current state.
I agree with both of you guys. I think this would segue into my definition of self care because part of my personal definition of self care is self love. So, doing some thinking, I wanted to share with you guys. My definition of self care is mindful, authentic expressions of self one to oneself. Mindful, authentic expressions of self love to oneself. So, three words: mindful, authentic, and self love. You cannot practice self care if you're not mindful, period. If you're not mindful of the things that make you tick, the things that aggravate you, the things that bring you happiness, the things that bring you joy, you cannot practice self-love, which then in turn means if you don't know yourself, you will never effectively practice self-care.
Yes.
What works for someone else might not work for you, but you wouldn't know that if you don't take the time to get to know yourself and be mindful of the things that again make you happy, don't trigger you, don't, and so forth, so you can find ways to deal with that and love yourself. Okay. Authentic means genuine. Okay. If you can't be authentic to yourself, you will never be authentic to anyone in your life. Might as well start with you, right? We get all out of whack when we're like, dang, yo, geez, they weren't real with me and they lied to me and they this to me. And they did. So how many times were you lying to yourself? How many times were you not authentic to yourself? It starts with you. It's you. And there's a quote that I love. It says, um, be yourself, everyone else is already taken. And
Mm.
I laugh about that quote. It's like, yeah, it's true. No, it's really true. Like everyone else is taken. So you gotta be yourself. You gotta own yourself and love on yourself. Because again, if you can't identify what it is and be real with yourself, how are you going to really practice self love? How can you really practice self care? So then the self love part, guys. So we look for love everywhere, right? In all different things. But loving yourself is the first part. And we hear it again all the time, but we don't understand how heavy that means to love on yourself. Because if you're not authentically loving on yourself, you're not practicing self-care. You become like when you're boiling water and then you forget, like I do sometimes, and it gets all dry, and then the water runs out, and then you try to go put it in the sink and you pour water on it and it just explodes, and no one could be around you, right? You're always upset. You're always complaining, but yet you're going on every trip, but you're traveling 4 times a year because you're practicing self-love, but yet you're going to get your massages and your nails done, and I don't know what the guys do. I can't wait to hear it, because you're practicing self-love, but you're blowing up all the time because you're not authentic to what really makes you love on you to practice that self-care that you need for yourself. So does happiness coincide with self-care? Absolutely, but you will never find it if you truly don't know yourself.
Wow.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Follow-up question. Um, and from a cultural perspective, how does self-care, the definition of self-care, the words that you all have mentioned, like being authentic, keeping your promises, um, how does that definition shift, if anything? Do you believe that self-care takes a back seat when we look at, the average Haitian household? What are your thoughts?
Well, I used to let it hold me back. So I was brought up in a household, in an environment, I feel like in the world, where it's like you work hard to achieve your goal, and then you have fun, and then you take a break, and then you relax. And for me, I took that literally. Whereas, I'm on the grind right now. I don't have a time to take a break. I don't have the time to talk to anybody on the phone. I don't have the time to go on vacation. I don't have the time to do anything but
Right.
work, work, work. And then what began to happen was I was seeing that uh, classic moments were leaving me behind, right? The people who I wanted to enjoy life with were leaving me behind. They were passing away, or they're no longer available. And I learned that part of being successful, part of staying on the grind efficiently, is taking time out to implement self-care on the journey. So it's not just work, 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 and then relax later. You have to kind of like put the both of them together to get to that ultimate goal successfully.
Awesome.
Um, I was laughing when I see this question, because I'm thinking about small things. Growing up in a Haitian household, if I wanted to, take up boxing to relieve stress, my mom would say, "Bah, ça trop violent," which translated in English, that's too violent. You're gonna start fights in school. And for me back then, it was just like, I want to increase my confidence. I want to learn to defend myself. Not so much go start fights in school, but the cultural mindset, it hindered me in that regards to even take up karate or boxing, like my other friends from different cultures were thriving in, from like first grade to beyond. Um, even small things like watching a scary movie, for example. That's part of my self care, like shocking yourself, or checking your scare meter. It can feel good, but in a Haitian household, if your mom or dad walks by, grandma, oh, keep eyes out. Like, what are you, spirits? You're watching zombies? Turn it off. And you have back and forth discussions. It's just a movie. But those small things, when you're young, you realize that, it's annoying, but as you get older, you're like, wait, that was my way of having self-care. But because of the cultural mindset of my beloved family, and many of my friends relate to this too, having watching Saw or watching Paranormal Activity, God, they start saying a prayer, they'd yell for eternal. So there's some things that growing up, I realized like, okay, you know what? I stopped arguing with them about because it's not their fault. It's what they were taught. Even something smaller. I remember I went to go for a haircut and I wanted to get one stripe here when I was 15. Now, by doing that, I'd be now labeled thug. So it's like, it's the mindset they have. And, you know, we can laugh now, but you think about these small ways of self-care for ourselves, even as adults. Sometimes our parents or grandparents, wherever we live with, adult figures can sometimes hinder that because of how they grew up or their own biases, you know, if it didn't work out for them in some ways. So that's something that comes to mind.
I agree. Stop arguing with them, right? But it's interesting because we're expecting our parents to respond to us in a way that they've never ever had to live or had the opportunity to experience life the way we are. And I think when we think about cultural beliefs and norms, and you hear it, you know, the haircut or, you know, going to get a massage. It's like, you didn't want my pole, like what's, you know, okay, all right, but you know, it's not their norm, right? So their self-care, and you know what's amazing? I would challenge folks to ask their parents, like, don't ask them if they practice self-care, but ask them what have they done to take care of themselves. And you might find some stuff that they share. Some of our parents is going to Haiti for a month, right? And then they come back. But you know, someone needs to help them know that there are 11 other months in the year that require them to take care of themselves. And
Mhm.
again, one trip is not going to help. It has to be somewhat of a daily routine. But I would say apply grace. I think it's everything happens for a reason at the right time. And we need to learn how to apply grace to that older generation. And like Denzel says, each one teach one. Maybe you're purposefully positioned at this moment in time to teach your older Haitian generation, whom you come in contact with, how to practice self care. And I remember when we first started HAMA, one of my friends was like, why don't you just do it for the Black community, just in general? Our Haitian folks, you know, man, they're hard. You know, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I am not calling Haitian people dogs, so please don't get crazy in the comments, y'all. I'm not calling Haitians dogs. It's an English saying. Um, but you know, our community could be challenging, but whether it's challenging or not, if it's where God calls you, if it's your purpose, you walk right into that, right? And I've seen in the past 3 years, even through this project, our community making the commitment to change. You know, having this conversation, it starts with a conversation. So we could laugh about it, like Juscard says, and it is funny. It's funny, but what would not be funny is that you soak in all of this self care and you know how to take care of yourself. Meanwhile, your aunts, uncles, mothers, brothers are struggling, and you don't even know it. So I think we our culture does play a factor on self care, and I think in this generation we're learning how to move past that. But as we're moving, let's not forget those who paved the way for us and help them move to better self care routines as well. Definitely move to better self care routines. I'll tell you one of mine, my mother, like when she starts going, I just tell her, I'm gonna leave you to your thoughts. And she can't stand when I say that because in the moment, I don't agree and I will not allow myself to escalate in what you're saying. So I'm gonna leave you to your thoughts. And at first, it was like, how dare you? It wasn't a cuss word. It was just a saying. And now, when I come to her with something, I'm gonna leave you to your thoughts because I'm annoying her and I'm not gonna allow her to mess with my peace. I'm gonna leave you to your thoughts. So find ways to teach them. You'd be surprised how receptive that they are.
I'm going to throw a curveball. It's a two-part question, but I'll just ask each individually. Um, I know, you know, the Haitian population filled with resilience, filled with people who are very laser focused, how would you respond to the argument that working hard is a form of self-care?
So working hard. So if a Haitian individual is saying working hard is self-care, I would then ask them, is everything else in your life going okay also? Because if there's an impairment in any other area of their life, then your hard working, your overtime, or your doubles are not self-care. Now, for some people, I mean, in our community, working hard, having more than one job tends to be the norm at times. But if someone say, just God, I'm doing okay, I'm on the grind, I'm like, well, how is your relationship? How is your connection with your father or mom? How is your health? I would dig, if someone were to say that in front of me, I would dig a little further to truly see if that statement is true. And it might be. It's rare. It might be that 1 or 2% where they're hardworking, they're still doing good and everything else. But most of the time, there's another area of their life that's being impacted by the grind. So I would just dig further if someone were to say that to me, honestly. Respectfully, of course.
I don't know. I think I'm gonna pass on this one. I'd say I don't think working hard is a form of self-care. For some, it may be, right? Because then we would have to get into the definition of what is self-care, right? So if I can get into the definition of self-care, I'd say, right? So self-love is I matter, right? And for me, self-care is because I matter, I'm going to do everything in my power to help myself thrive mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. So in that case, I guess hard work is a form of self-care in that aspect, but we would then need to look at the other aspects of life, like just God said, how are you showing up in your relationships? How are you showing up, with the people around you, or just within yourself?
I would agree. It requires a little bit of digging. I think the part that would get me is what are you working on? Um, and it requires a balance, like Giscard and Royale just said, because you could be working hard because you need the finances to do the amazing things that you do to take care of yourself, or you could be working hard for taking care of a loved one, whatever it may be. So it would require a little bit more digging, but on the surface, I would say no. Um, I would say no because it you could work hard, but are you effective? You could work hard and lose your whole family. You could work hard and um, lose your purpose because you might be working on things that are not even assigned to you,
Right.
right? So
Matter.
it would
Right.
require a little bit more digging, definitely.
Hmm. So if you all had to sum up the definition of self-care, what would that look like? And how would that mirror or differ from the definition that, like your parents may have, or your guardian may have, people in your immediate family? How would that definition differ or mirror?
So if I'll go first. Like I said before, right? So I believe that, like, in the Haitian community, and for many of us, we were groomed to survive in life and not thrive, right? And sometimes hard work falls under that category of just surviving and not thriving. And like I said before, self-love is I matter, right? And self-care is because I know that I matter, I'm going to do everything in my power to thrive mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. And if we're looking at what self-care is thriving in all of those aspects. Being happy is thriving, right? Being successful is thriving. Having great relationships with people is thriving, right? So that'd be my definition.
For me, it's such a deep. There's so many answers you could get from so many different dynamics. For me, it's how you're speaking to yourself. Has it changed from the past? Self care for me is what you think of yourself, how you treat yourself. Just being alone, being still. Some people do not know how to be alone. Um, they always need to be around a crowd or be, something booed up. They just don't know how to stay alone for a while. And you need to be okay with yourself before, you can give that heart to someone else. Me personally, as I grew up, there were times where after a long day at work or a Saturday morning, if I'm just relaxing, I'll think of a funny joke or a movie and laugh to myself. And I was like, this feels good. I don't need someone to bounce off this joke from. I was like, yeah, that party was crazy. You're a wild one, man. So just having fun with yourself. Some people age 40, 50, 60, never learning how to laugh with themselves or laugh at themselves. And accepting that it's okay not to know everything, to mess up on something. So self-care, when I shared earlier how it's part of your evolution, it's changing how you treat yourself when no one's around, what you say to yourself, just being still with yourself for a while before you open that part of you with other people.
I agree with the both of you guys. Like I said earlier, self care is, mindful, authentic expressions of self love to oneself. Do I think that my community, my Haitian community, or my parents or my immediate family practices the mindfulness? They may be mindful. I think the other part of it is the execution of what you're now mindful of that may be lacking a little bit. Authentic, I would say so in a way. I do want to put a pointer on some of the things that our Haitian community struggles with in terms of authenticity. With growing up Haitian, that comparison factor that, vous avez fait le petit Bob. Why don't you do it like Marie? So and I think that they strive to be authentic, but there's also that hustle and grind and, trying to keep up and make face a little bit that really kills our authenticity as a community. And it's truly not a negative thing in its totality, but it's very how would I say this? It's toxic, I would say, to young folks growing up to be in that environment. Like Jascard was saying, Saw 3, 1, 2, whichever one it was that he watches, he got his thrill, and that would be something that would help him, right? Practice self care. But parents are like, don't look at that, don't read that, don't, and my son is watching things that he shouldn't be, or it's a bad job, it's demonic or whatever. They would never pick up the phone and be like, what just God was doing is watching this movie, because it's a lot of making face and stuff. So the authentic part, I think we struggle with my immediate community I would say struggles with a lot. And then self-love. If someone loves themselves, like Royale was saying, that starts with you, that you're gonna make sure that you prioritize yourself. But again, for our parents or our grandparents, a lot of the times they couldn't prioritize themselves because they had to prioritize the survival of their family. So is it the same? Is the way I process self-care the same as my community, my parents, grandparents, or even aunts and uncles? I would say no, but it's not because I don't think it's because they don't want to. I think it's because they had no other choice but to survive. And now, like I said before, we're in a position to thrive. Now we can't just thrive, we got to thrive and bring them with us.
Right. I love the phrases that are being thrown around. I'm hearing self-love. Royale, you
Yes.
mentioned the phrase I matter, putting yourself first. So with that, I ask, is self-care just another phrase for the word selfishness? And two, is it okay for one to be selfish? Is being selfish a good characteristic?
Now, I let all of y'all go
I ask
first.
all the
I let
time.
y'all go first. Plenty of
It's a
time.
good question.
I'm going to gradually and gracefully, I'm going to gracefully put myself into the answering this question first.
Oop.
Gentlemen, I would say, I honestly would say it's okay to be selfish. It is
Mm.
okay. And I will say
To
it is
what
okay.
extent, though?
Huh?
To what extent?
The fullest extent. The fullest. You want to know why? I see these quotes floating around IG and Facebook, and they're not going to prioritize you. Remember how they treated you, and you prioritize them, and they're not going to prioritize all this stuff. Quotes are great, memes are great. Now let's live it, right? It's okay to be selfish because you could pour out all of you, and at the end of the day have nothing for you. That's detrimentally, like, you're damaging yourself, right? My favorite word in the past, I would say 7 years of life, is no. I've got so used to saying no that it has helped my mental health because I needed to be selfish for myself in order to make sure that my cup remains full. I remember Oprah said this before. She said, we get under the notion that, oh, my cup is full, my cup is full. We say it, my cup is full. But what people tend to forget is that the cup was never supposed to tip over. It was always supposed to sit upright. And when it sits upright, what happens is what's in the cup is for you, and what flows over is for everybody else. But we tend to tip the cup over to go help Sally and Bob and Giscard and Royale and Christina and da da da, and then we're upright and we're empty and we're irritated, okay? And we're mad and we wonder what is wrong. Well, because you left nothing in for you. So yes, you have to be selfish. You have to understand. And I told this to one of my coworkers 2 weeks ago. I said, listen, any commitment that I'm saying yes to right now, I'm thinking about my life 2, 4, 6 years from now. Anything I'm saying yes to. Because I run the risk. If I say yes to the wrong thing, I might be tipping myself. And I can't afford to tip. I gotta sit upright, and the more I replenish myself, if that commitment means whatever comes out the cup falls into you and we could work it out, fine. But I'm not tipping. I'm not, you gotta learn to know where you are. Is your cup upright? Some of us, our cup is upside down, empty, dry. You haven't even turned your cup right side up so you can receive and replenish yourself. So yes, it is okay to be selfish. It is okay to say no. Whatever it is that you need to say no to. And I will say, I'm not telling you to be rude about it. Difficult conversations can happen. It's all in your approach, the tone, and the time. When I say no, I say it gracefully. I don't over explain myself. I don't under explain myself. I just say I can't. Thank you for the invitation. Be polite about it. But I would challenge our viewers to know that it is okay to be selfish. And if you want to know how to be selfish, learn how to start saying no to the things that you know are, one, not assigned to you, two, that is going to tip your cup over either today, next year, 3 years, or 6 years. And honestly understand that if you don't prioritize yourself, like those memes and Facebook pictures, really, truthfully, no one is. But now let's start living that.
Okay. It's Scott, you gonna go or you want me to go?
I just want to piggyback off that because I'm like, I'm snapping. I'll snap my fingers the whole time I was here. That is so true, Brenda. The power, people don't realize NO is one of the most powerful words in English language. Especially if it's something that you know for two things that wouldn't add value to your life, or probably be reciprocated if the tables were turned. I learned that growing up, how, whenever someone needed a favor from me, to go and be there for them. I would take my dad's car in the middle of the night to go pick up someone who, the car shut down or they need a ride to a party. But as time went by, whenever I needed them to be there for me, they were always too busy or tied up. So as time went by, I started shifting my mindset. And you can't please everyone, but that's okay. I think that the second part is what people forget. It's okay that you can't please everyone because you're not supposed to. And that's how we end up being spent and burnt out and end up using unhealthy coping skills to manage, self-care, whether it's drinking, fighting, sex, drugs, whatever it is to cope with that stress because you don't have the courage to say no. So you'll say yes for your homegirl, be at every event they have, be yes for your boy. But then when you're frustrated, you don't have the confidence to speak up and say no, you turn to the bottle. You turn to a movie or, you fester on it, but you never speak your mind. So I love how you emphasize the power of saying no. Also, too, even in, friendship or even relationships, there's a beautiful Bible verse, and it's not coming to me now, but it says, for those who walk away from you, they were not of you. For if they were of you, they would never leave you. Meaning that no matter how annoying you are as a person or disrespectful you may be, because we all have flaws, those who truly love you will be like, you know what, just got to have a rough time, bro. I'll call him tomorrow. Oh, okay, he shoved me. He had a few, whatever I may have done to hurt someone else with my words or my emotions, those who have stuck around me, and for you all, I believe that verse resonates true because it still stuck by. And as you get older, you learn to appreciate them. Like, yo, you've always been my homeboy from day one. Even at the time we fought, or I didn't call you back, or you're my homegirl. No matter what you've done to other people in life, those who still stick around, I want our viewers to hear this. Those who are still in your life, whether it's a relationship, intimately, friendship, cousins, or siblings, because family could walk away too if they wanted to. But for those who are still in your life, know this because they were designed by God to be in your life, no matter how rude, fuka, or anything else you've been towards them. And those who walked away from you, never chase after them. Because if they were for you, they would never easily walk away from you.
Yes, you did that.
True. And I'll add to what the both of you said. So I heard both of you say it's okay to say no. And I'm going to add that in order to be selfless, we must first be selfish, right? Because
Yes.
if you don't know how to care for yourself, how will you know how to care for someone else properly?
Yes.
If you don't know how to love yourself, how will you know how to love someone else properly? If you don't know how to help yourself, how will you know how to help someone else properly? So in order to be selfless, we must first be selfish.
I gotta piggyback off that. That's amazing, King. I respect everything you're saying. And a little gem in there, in relationships, there's something that once you know your worth, you'll know what you deserve. Something I say over and over to yourselves, especially when you're dating. I think a lot of our viewers, I want this to home. If you don't know how to love or treat yourself the respect that you deserve for yourself, like Rael was sharing, then you won't know to distinguish when someone's mistreating you. You'll stay with them longer than you should have because you never first, wait, I don't like being yelled at. I should leave this person. But if you never have that self-discovery, whether it's through prayer, therapy, whatever it is, you'll be with someone longer than you should and never know when to distinguish what true love is and what, abuse is in various forms. So once you know your worth, you'll know what you deserve, whatever that looks like.
Ooh, I feel like I'm at a motivational, TED Talk. It's really awesome. Follow-up question: how does one effectively and politely say no?
See, how do you effectively and politely say no? By just saying no. No matter how you say no, right? Like just God said, that the people who aren't for you, or the people who are entitled, or the people who don't get it, no matter how you say no, they're still gonna receive it the wrong way. So there's never a wrong way to say no, but the best way to say no is that you're saying no because it's not taking you away with your best self. So anything that's taking you away from your best self, anything that's distracting you from your best self, anything that's distracting you from your happiness, you can say no to that. And I don't think it should even bother you to say no to anything that's distracting you from being your best self. So there's no proper way to say no, right? No, it's still gonna sound the same.
I agree. I agree. There's no proper way to say no. It's no. I will say I think our generation, we need to really figure out and teach the ones coming up that there are certain no's that can't be done through text. Okay. There's certain no's that require a phone call. There are certain no's that require a documented email because y'all already know certain people are off their rocker. You know, like Royale said, no matter how you say it, it's still gonna be, it's not gonna be taken the right way. So I think there's no effective way of saying no, but the approach and the delivery and the timing, okay, of how you say no is very important. So the way I say no to my mom is not the way I say no to my brothers. Like my brothers get a straight text like, nah, dude, not happening. My mother, I gotta sit her down and tell her that I'm still gonna leave you to your thoughts, and I can't. You know, the way I say no to my dad, that's a whole nother project. I love him. I love him, but you know, you have to know who you're dealing with. Okay, you really have to know who you're dealing with and find the right time and tone and means of communication on how you're going to say no, because you don't want to go and create more stress in your life, and then you got to implement more self-care practices, and you got to watch those Saw 3 movies to like get you right, and you know you got to find out. But it is so true. There's certain people, no matter how you say it, they will not receive it, and we have to stop expecting folks to receive things the way we would.
Wow.
Be you. Everyone else is taken. Okay? The way you receive an email saying no, it is what it is. You know, you gotta just know how to deliver it. Just know how to deliver it. But no.
Yeah, no, I love how Brenda broke it down, especially in the professional spaces that we're in. As Haitian people and anyone of color, anyone who's watching this, regardless of your cultural background, the importance of saying no respectfully goes a long way, not just family, but professionally. I had a call 2 days ago from a supervisor out of state asking me like, hey, would you like to be part of this awesome team to deliver these things once a week? I think it'd be great for your career. And as the more she explained it, I'm like, I already have enough going on. And as amazing as the opportunity would be, I wouldn't be able to give my full sense of self. So even though she was talking about in a way that anyone would normally say yes to, I know my limits as I've gotten older. So I say, you know what? Let's say, for example, her name is Kate. I say, Kate, you know what? I really appreciate you sharing this with me. Do you mind if I think about it and get back to you in a few days, please? She's like, oh, yeah, sure. The old Giscard been like, yeah, that sounds awesome, because in the Haitian community, you wanna oftentimes you'll do pache figimund, which means in English, don't buy people's faces, don't try and buy their love or attention. So in the past, I kind of disregard that because I'm in a predominantly white environment working. Yeah, I'll do this. Yeah, I'll take this project. But I saw myself getting burnt out. So to piggyback off Brenda, in the workplace, you can respectfully say no, and that's okay. Even people who are different culture from us, because if not, they'll put more and more tasks on our plates, and then we end up, getting a verbal warning, God forbid, or that written warning. You could have just said, you know what, there's so much I'm working on right now. I appreciate it. Maybe when my task free up, I'll get back to you. There's ways to word it while still being professional and respectful.
Absolutely. And I'd like to say, not every opportunity is an opportunity. So, we tend to try to, oh, this person asked me to do this. This person asked me to speak. This person asked me to join this project. You know, family's doing X. This person's doing Z. Like seriously, think about your yeses and think about your nos. And how does it really align with your purpose? You know, you can't be everywhere doing everything. What are your goals in life, right? What is the goal? What are you trying to achieve by the end of this year? I know challenging, we're living through challenging times. What are your goals for the next 1 to 2 years? And again, when you're saying your yeses and your nos, do they align with the goals and the purposes that you know you have? Now, you can't answer that if you haven't really identified what your purpose is in life. Okay. And you might not always have an idea, but a lot of times when we're looking for purpose and we're looking to progress and so forth, we're saying yes to everything.
Mhm.
I remember
Hmm.
I remember my boss when I was transitioning to start really working on the foundations of HAMA more thoroughly and freeing up my time. She said to me, you know, I see you and the things you're doing in the community. You know, it breaks my heart that you didn't join a committee, you know, here. And I had to say to her, I think that was for the best of the both of us and anybody who I'd be on the committee with, because I'm not going to say yes and just use it to be put on a resume, but not work, right? So if you're looking at every opportunity as an opportunity, you're going down the wrong path. And if you're looking at every opportunity as a way for you to build yourself up, but you're not willing to put in the work, you're gonna have to do a lot of self-care, okay? And if you don't really take the time to identify what is really assigned to you, you're going to always spin and you're going to always have a hard time saying no. And you're always going to find yourself frustrated no matter how many trips you take, no matter how many massages you do, no matter how many scary movies you watch. You're constantly going to be frustrated because you've now entered in a chaotic world. You just don't know what you should be saying no to because you haven't identified where you belong and who you are. So, yeah, you can effectively say no, but it requires you to be able to identify what's assigned to you and what truly is your purpose.
I'm loving the answers to these questions, especially this one in particular. Just a little on the side comment. I was a long time ago, but I was reading something. I believe it was on Forbes Money, and it mentioned something. I'm just summarizing, but it did mention something along the likes of one of the biggest downfalls or pitfalls of Black America is that we always tend to lend a helping hand. So I think it's been conditioned in us way back when to help, our brothers and sisters. But I think we have to uncondition ourselves to do that again to a certain extent and really just learn how to put ourselves first, as you guys have said. Really learning how to, be okay with being okay with ourselves, and not just, helping, the next person and then putting ourselves last. So, great commentary. I'm loving it. One question, I love this question, just because I feel like all of your respected fields deal with helping others, in various different ways, but helping others. Do you believe caring for others is a form of self-care?
Um, there's levels to it, but yes, it can be. One personal example that comes to mind is when I became a part of the Big Brother program during my last year of undergrad. I've always wanted to kind of give back to the community in a unique way. And being a Big Brother to this individual, I believe he was 9 years old, African American male, was so rewarding. It allowed me to not only build my empathy and love for children even more, but also admire the resilience I've overcome as a Black male in society. So, and it allowed me again to be more patient with other people, not just with clients, but my friends and family. And also, I don't have it all together. It kind of humbled me too, working with this individual, because we'd go either to the park or to the circus, and he kind of called me out on some stuff. I'm like, okay, you got that, and I was able to receive it from someone younger than me. But also, it was rewarding to know he felt that comfortable to be real with me about how he felt, because his environment was very abusive, and most of the men in his family mistreated him in many different ways. So I was the first Black male in his life at age 9 that he could talk trash to, but respectfully, and not think I was going to hurt him. So for that improved my self-care, because I was able to give to someone else what they didn't have. So yes, depending on what the activity or project is, you can increase your self-care by caring for others.
Yeah. So there's a saying that goes the best way to practice something, or the best way to learn something, is by implementing it on someone else. Right? So if we look at it from that perspective, caring for others is a form of self-care, because it can also teach you some of the things you're doing correctly and some of the things you're doing
Okay.
incorrectly.
I never thought about it that way.
And I agree. I totally agree with balance, of course, right? With limits and balance. Yep, with the limits and balance. We got the snaps, we got the limits and balance tonight. Okay, okay. With limits and balance, I agree with what both of you guys have said, and I'll give you a personal, raw example for myself. So, 2018, I made it my goal to run a 10K every year. Did it in 2018, struggled. Did it in 2019, struggled. Finished both years. 2020, pandemic hits. We're shifting as an organization. Things are getting crazy. And just found myself to be at my all-time heaviest in weight. Like, guys, I have like no filter. This is an authentic conversation. And I had to take a step back. I was like, what is going on? Brenda, you're taking care of your community, you're taking care of cancer patients, okay? But you have somehow let yourself go in some shape, form, or fashion. That's why I said there needs to be a balance. There has to be a balance. I was at a women's conference last year in August, and I uttered these words, not realizing that God wanted me, that was for me. I said, don't lose yourself chasing purpose. Don't go losing yourself chasing purpose. So you could take care of folks in whatever capacity that is, whether you're a healthcare provider, whether you're at some form of institution, whether you're working with children and families, whether you're at a community center that you funded, whether you're working with folks like what we're doing through HAMA. That's all great, but there has to be some limits, because as you're helping others, like I said before, you got to watch yourself from tipping your cup. And my cup was tipping, and I didn't realize, because also in the ages of COVID, I mean, not ages, well, but now that we're living through COVID, you know, I had to be at this hospital 4 days a week, if not more. So I had to take care of patients. My father, has a history of asthma. Couldn't hug my dad for 4 months. That messed with me. You know, doing all this stuff, shifting as an organization. Not having answers for the team because I didn't know, but God did. Thank God, right? And then, but somewhere in that shuffle, I lost myself. Let's be real. Somewhere in being a father, in a mother, a sister, a newlywed, a husband, a wife, you might lose yourself. But if you, again, don't know yourself, it's harder for you to dig yourself out of those times. So is caring for others a form of self-care? Absolutely. But with limits. With limits. I thoroughly enjoy my patients. They teach me. Just kind of talking about how this 9-year-old kid has taught him, so much about himself. And Royale echoes the same thing. And I can't even begin to tell you how I'll come to work like, boy, here we are. We're gonna get through this day. And then one of my patients like, what's wrong with you? Oh my God. And they speak life into me. I remember the last thing one of my patients said, Brenda, you know what? If you can't get over it, get around it. These are the people I come in contact with, from patients to family members, and I'm caring for them, but they're doing for me more than I feel like I'm doing for them. Am I caring for them? Yes, I am, but I also need to know that in that shuffle, how to not lose myself, and practice a different form of self-care in the different seasons that I'm in. And I'd like to say a point about that too. Your self-care routine is not going to look the same at the beginning of the year and then towards the end of the year. I mean, if it does and you're doing fine, great. But different seasons of life cause you to shift the way you care for yourself. Whether you have a time constraint, whether you have commitment constraints, you have to be flexible. But again, there's no way for you to identify that if you do not know yourself. So don't worry about me. I got a whole team of accountability on me. I might be at my all-time heaviest, but I still look good, and I know that, no self-esteem issues here, but those 9 flights of stairs, I'm huffing. And I'm like, how do you run a health organization and you over here huffing, girl? Come on. You got the way you speak to yourself, like Just Card said. I'm not gonna be huffing for long. I will run my 10K with or without an organization by the end of this year, okay? It's how you talk to yourself, but I know myself enough to know when I need a shift and when I need to really take some time to shut it down, be selfish, and fill my cup up so what flows over could be for everyone else and I could still be upright.
Yes, Brenda. No, and I am, the pair of pushing hands for you. You are going to run whatever K you want to.
And if it's okay, I want to piggyback off of Brenda share because it's powerful in so many different aspects. I have 2 roles right now. I'm a school clinician in the day, and in the evenings, I'm an in-home behavioral therapist. So it's now through telehealth and through Zoom. And I remember the situation where this one family was saying, you know what, Jessica, we really just need you to put eyes on us during dinner time because our son's misbehaving. I feel like I want to support. Can you just really put eyes? And the same thing, just really just watch us have dinner. And I said, you know what, this mom called for help. Me observing the family would be helpful twice a week, around 6 or 7:30 or 8. But then, being a new father, our newborn son, wife and I, he's 5 months old now. I realized, I'm on the grind all day, changing the lives of families, being there for them, observing. But I'm like, my little man, he takes so much infrequent naps that sometimes if I'm so much on the grind, I don't get to, play with him because he takes so much naps. So I had to tell myself that family will be okay. They have other providers in place. And if God forbid an emergency, there's a safety plan in place. So I had to tell myself that, they'll be fine. And also not break my own boundaries. I love the field I'm in, but I have to learn for myself. Exactly, King. Balance. Because my little man is like, he can't talk. He's playing around. I hear him screaming and laughing. I'm like, I want to go hold him. I want to go experience that. So I had to learn for myself. Though I'm there for the people and it's my job, I do have the right, to your point, to say no. And of course, while risking my position and say, enable a family, you'll be okay, one more day. So, at the expense of not losing my time, my wife and my newborn son, I had to put those boundaries in place because they can wait. But my wife and son, they're my priority.
Agreed, 100%. We have time for one more question, unfortunately. I wish the day had more than 24 hours, but unfortunately it doesn't. Can you all just share your top 3 self-care routines, what it looks like, how you implement them within your day, that has completely just left you satisfied? Top 3.
Okay.
And
I'll-
I will just I will just add, I'm going to challenge you all to just maybe for one of them, list something a little bit more abstract. Because I feel like in this day to day, like when I hear self care, I think of, I don't know, bubble baths and facials and massages. But think of if you were to be isolated in a room and you didn't have any of those things, any resources, which some people unfortunately do experience, like what would self care look like then? So just try and think of one, a little bit more abstract, but yeah, top three. Sorry for interrupting.
no, this is true. This is good. For me, my number one self care, I'll say having conversation with God. Right, I talk to God often, like many of us do, but I come to understand that when I'm going through my toughest time, when I feel overwhelmed, or when I'm happy, or when I just need to speak to someone where I know there won't be any judgment, I talk to God, right? And number two, I say I like to read, right? Because sometimes you could be reading a book and you can travel to Taiwan through the book and actually be in Taiwan and never have physically visited Taiwan, but through reading you can. So reading is important for me. That's like my number two of self-care, right? And then number three, what I do, whether it's on a Sunday or a Monday or whatever day I feel I need it, I'll just be. I'm not answering my calls. I'm not going online. I'm not talking to nobody. I'm not responding to text messages. I don't care what's going on outside of where I'm at for that moment, whether it's for 5 hours, whether it's for half of the day, and I'll just be. And I'll just sit with my thoughts and think about all the different things that are going on in my life, what's not going right, what's going right, and I'll just be. And I think sometimes we need that without giving anybody an explanation of why you didn't pick up your phone or why you didn't respond to my text, or I saw you online and I text you half an hour ago, you didn't respond because I didn't want to. Right now, I just want to be
Yep.
to myself.
Right
I'm
there.
not talking to anyone, and I'll do what I please, and I'll go on how I feel. And I think that we all deserve to have those moments and take advantage of those moments and take them seriously. Use those moments with conviction. And those are my three top self-care routines.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. Yes, I love it. I'm gonna be a little dizzled, and I'm gonna tag on one more. I'm gonna do four. Okay. So without anything in an empty room, in an empty room, like I said, mindful, authentic expressions of self love. Being mindful. Um, that's how I practice my self care. Being mindful. I try to be mindful because I try to be mindful of the spaces that I'm in and how other people's behaviors and their energy and their, comments or whatever, how that affects me. I try to be mindful of that. Um, I try to make sure I live by the statement that that does not belong to me. Okay, like whatever it is, that does not belong to me. I just shared it with my coworkers today in our office. I said, that's another one that does not belong to me. So being mindful of again what your triggers are, what my triggers are at least, and when I need to stop, okay, and take some time for myself. Um, Spending time alone is one of my major self care parts of my self care routine. I know people. I'm in and out of different spaces and environments. I love people, but boy, I love being alone. Okay, I am most productive in my alone time. I am most creative in my alone time. And I love being alone. Like I have no issues going into a restaurant and sitting there eating alone, having a glass of champagne or cocktail, whatever it is, alone, because I just love my alone time. And being alone is something that everyone can do. And whether you're, young or old, and you just have to make the time to be alone. If that means you have a family, that means you might have to be waking up a little bit earlier while everyone's sleeping to spend some time alone. That may mean that when everyone goes to bed, you have that time for yourself. Third thing is journaling. Like I told you guys in the beginning, HAMA was birthed off of an idea 8 years before it took its full effect, right? It became a reality. It was an idea written down. So I love journaling. I encourage folks to journal, and don't make it complicated. My journaling starts with, dear God, what's going on? This is what's going on with me. I like homegirl's crazy. Um, these people at work are stressing me out. Like, you know, control Bay because he might not be a Bay no more. And I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Help mom to be okay with. I'm gonna leave her to her. Like this is like as if you're talking to someone. Journal the way you want. Journaling doesn't have to be complicated. Just write down your thoughts, and you'd be surprised how much growth you have over time when you go back and you read those journal entries. Like, woo, I was stuff. I wasn't good. I'm glad I'm better. I'm glad I'm better. Or wow, I was in a good space. What was different then that's changed now? So journaling is pretty effective. And my last one, as I just shared, um, losing myself and being at my all-time heaviest, I'm back to training and running again. But there's a difference, right? There's a difference because in the morning when I'm running to worship music. I'm running to my gospel. I'm having a whole like session on that treadmill or the stairmaster, and it's beautiful. Like no interruptions. A text could be coming through. I made a mistake once on the treadmill and started reading an email for work. Almost fell. I think that's God's way of like, put it down. Don't do that. This is not time for that. And just really finding the best workout routine for you. Some form of exercise helps so much. It helps so much. Whether you do in the beginning of the day, the end of the day, whatever it is, there's just it's so helpful. And don't make it complicated. Again, self-care should not be complicated, y'all. It shouldn't be complicated. And remember, what works for someone else might not work for you, but what we've just shared, and I know Just Guard's going to share too, are things that you could start implementing tomorrow. you know Go online and get your membership to the gym, whichever one. Make sure they wear masks and stuff. Like buy a journal at CVS tonight. Start somewhere. Being alone, close the door, go somewhere. You could do all of these things. You could talk to God. You could do all of what you need to do. It doesn't require money. It doesn't. And I will say, in this COVID era, I feel like COVID is forcing us to learn how to build simple self-care routines. Simple. Some of you have the most money you've ever had because you're not taking those trips. Now you got to evaluate how much were the trips really helping you. And if they were, I totally agree because they helped me as well. But what else can you do to take care of yourself in the event that you cannot travel, get a massage, get your hair done, get your one line in your head with your haircut? What else can you do? So those are my four. And I pass it over to Just Guard to let us know what he does before we wrap up.
Great. How do I follow up with that? Jeez.
Follow up.
You're right. I should follow up in other ways. For me, I mean, the top three that come to mind, I'll try to dissect each one in the respect of time. Self-affirmations are huge for me. Usually, if I find a great quote online, I will literally print it and tape it on my bedroom or office wall, and literally will stand in front of it and read it out loud. If there's another one, I'll tape it in my bathroom. There's one I had that says, "When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be." It's an old Greek. It's an old Socratic quote. So, that's something I use, which I've seen many benefits from. Just waking up and saying out loud, I mean, of course, not yelling to wake up the house, but I literally walk in front of the mirror and say, when I let go of what I am, I become what I might be. Right, bro? Yeah. So it seems silly, but it works for me. Of course, if the conversation go more than 5 minutes, my wife should be concerned and probably call best team. But it was a small, quick conversation, and I affirm myself. So affirmations are key. Print them out, post it, tape it up somewhere visually, and read out loud to yourself before bed and night. Working out, in whether it's push-ups or sit-ups, if you can't get to a gym, or to the question, if you're in your room alone, stick your feet underneath the bed to hold you to do some sit-ups. It helps release what they call dopamine, the feel-good chemicals. So when you're breaking a small sweat, doing those, even gonna just do 5 push-ups, whatever form, that helps me really kind of get ready for the day and get me energized. I think about the third one, which doesn't happen as often, but I try to do it maybe every few seasons, is an Asian philosophy called feng shui, where your environment that you live in, if that's not in order, or if you don't switch things around, it may disrupt your growth and your healing. One great example for those who, say for someone who, just got a relationship and the boys used to come by the house often, whether you guys hung out more in the living room or the bedroom, after the breakup happened, whenever how long ago it was, research shows with the feng shui philosophy, if you switch around where the couch used to be positioned or how your bed used to be, the healing can come much faster, because now your body is in a position that's not used to, so that you'll be in a better way to not reminisce about that person no longer in your life. And even just changing your environment. Before I left my home to move in with my wife, I would change my bedroom every season. The bed will be against the wall. Nope, I want in the corner this way, and I want over there. So it would help me. I felt rejuvenated each time. I felt I was coming to a new room. And then I'm like, wow, this is a nice room. So those 3 things: working out, small things, sit-ups or push-ups in your room, writing down a post-it or printing out from FedEx or your printer a quote that you love, and changing your environment, switching your bed around once every 3 months, donating clothes, just changing how you sleep and function, because your temple is your place of peace. And if it's chaotic and there's clothes everywhere, shoes, and your bed's kind of broken, that usually manifests in how you see life. So those are my top 3.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, no, that was the feng shui is very, very unique. I definitely have to take some notes, the mental notes. We thank you so much, everyone. We are going to move into final thoughts. So please spend a minute or 2 max. If there's anything you want to share, any resources that you may have, want to share, put it out there. Please do. It's a free for all again. Don't feel limited by my words. But yeah, any final thoughts you would like everyone to know? Let's start with you, Brenda.
That was the girl code, ladies first, right? Self-care, don't make it complicated. Don't make self-care complicated. Be open to trying new things. Again, constantly learn about yourself so that you know what will work for you and what won't. Some things might be deemed weird. Like, I find it terribly weird that Just Guard, the soft read of horror movies. But that's Just Guard's gonna lead me to my thoughts, right? Right. So whatever it is that you feel like you need to take care of yourself. Again, I think the biggest thing I took away is honestly learning how to say no. Um, it you it will change your life. Like it literally will change your life. And don't let's not thrive like Royale said. Let's thrive, but let's not thrive and forget about our older generation and benefit from all of these self-care routines and practices and be okay and forget about them. So each one teach one. Learn your self-care routines. Don't impose them on anybody. Um, and really just be authentic with yourself in order to know how to love yourself better. And be mindful. Be mindful.
Awesome.
So I'll save the best for last. Just God to share his thoughts last, right?
You keep me humble. I'm learning from you, God. I'm learning from you all. Trust me.
Uh, what I'll say this, because I struggled for a while with self care for myself and for my loved ones, because I always wanted to work hard, work first, and then have fun after. I'll say, don't wait until you have the perfect amount of money to take yourself or your loved one out for a night on the town, because when you are ready, that person may not be there. Don't waste time trying to create perfect moments, because that moment
Yeah.
may never come. Cherish yourself while you're present. Cherish your loved ones while they are still present. Make classic moments by just making it a habit to create moments, because time on earth with yourself, time on earth with a loved one is a privilege and not a right.
Yeah. Wow.
Moshe, I'm gonna go Haitian mode on that one. I'm like, wow, that was great.
It's an English session, sir. Thank
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry. I thought there were subtitles. No, okay.
It's okay.
Um, thank you for sharing, both you, Royale and Brenda. I'm a man of many phrases and quotes. I just love reading and learning more. Just my final thoughts is, to piggyback on the phrase I shared with you guys earlier. Once you know your worth, you know what you deserve. That applies to your job, your relationships, your friendships. Really get to know yourself. Whether, again, seeking a counselor, seeing that one true friend, but try to seek out, and I say therapy more than friendship, because sometimes people confuse venting to a friend as therapy, and it's not the same, because your friend holds biases that they can't shake off, whereas a therapist, you come in a non-judgmental world. So really get to know yourself more, and just never stop growing. The moment you feel like, okay, I'm good where I'm at, you should be worried. Never get comfortable in life. Never think, okay, I made it, let me just stop. Because on the spiritual aspect, for those who believe, that's the evil saying, you'll never be better than this. So never be content. Never, just always strive for more. Don't burn out, but always strive for more. And I leave you with this quote, when it comes to, reaching your full potential. A man once asked, another man, this, what is hell? And the man said, hell is on the last day on earth that you have, you meet the person you could have become.
Wow.
So whatever that person is that you will walk up to and shake the hand of, become them now. Because at that point, it will hurt you even more to know, I could have been that. I let my fears, my past hurt, whatever held me back, stop me from becoming the person I'm now shaking. And if that's not hell, I don't know what else is.
Wow. That hit me. It really did. Wow. Well, thank you. And with that was a perfect ending to tonight. Thank you all. And I would just like to personally say we have to do this again. It was wonderful. Nothing short of wonderful. That's what I would say. And thank you all to who are watching both on Facebook and on YouTube. If this is your first time watching, thank you. If this is your fourth time watching this month, thank you times 4. We are more than happy to have the videos up again on YouTube and on Facebook for your viewing, dozens and dozens of times. So please, just inform your family members, your friends, your coworkers, whoever might be interested in these topics, to head on to our Facebook page, or our YouTube page, and just take a look. Again, I would like to thank the panelists tonight. It was amazing, mind blowing, even. With that, I'll just hand it off to Brenda.
Yes, Christina, thank you for driving this conversation. And again, thank you to Giscard and Royale for being with us this evening. If you guys feel like, again, you want to see it again, it'll be up on our YouTube and Facebook platforms. But, if you're so concerned about your parents, aunts, and uncles that need to hear it in the Haitian Creole language, we've got you covered. Send them our way Wednesday night at 7 p.m. We'll be going live again on YouTube and Facebook, and we're going to have a self care conversation in the Haitian Creole language. Okay. We, again, each one teach one. We want to bring them with us on this self care, a better care of self journey. Okay. Um, I say this at the end of every session that we have. HAMA gives out scholarships every year to our Haitian American students in our community that are excelling, that are pursuing some type of medical related degree. So, although we have wrapped up 2020's scholarship program, next year it's going to continue in 2021. Be on the lookout. Send folks over to our Instagram, Facebook pages, tell them to follow us. If they want to be added to our email list, they could go to our website and shoot us a quick request to be added to our mailing list. I am grateful for this evening. I'm excited that we had this time. Kind of bummed that it's over. That was really quick. But again, we have the recap, which I'll be watching for my own edification. And I can't thank you both. Thank you, Kings, enough for joining us. Thank you, thank you. And Christina, as always, thank you so much. Thank you. And everyone who's watching us, have a great night. Wherever you find yourself, have a great night. And please remember to practice self care as a form of self love for the betterment of who you will become. Have a good night.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much, everyone. Thank you.